On a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you trust an at home blood test? You can tell me your answer in the comment section. The point of me asking this question is this: the pandemic, as brutal as it was, forced a lot of businesses to double down on convenience and accessibility. Whether it was your online education or quick commerce or at home blood tests. Just to be able to skip that dreaded visit to a hospital or a diagnostic center meant so much to most people. Accredited labs popped all over the country, promising to come right to your doorstep and collect your samples from the comfort of your home. And that too for super affordable prices. What more could you ask for, right? Take Healthians, a testing lab startup based out of Bangalore, for example. It has seen its bookings triple since the pre pandemic era. Now, the company handles 12,500 to 13,000 bookings daily, with nearly 75% of its business coming from home collections. But while home tests are gaining popularity, whether you can trust them 100% or not is still under question. Let's take the case of Anuj. Both his parents, who are in their 60s, got a home test done through Pharmacy's Thyrocare, and they found out that they were suffering from diabetes. You can imagine the level of stress that they went through, only to realize 2 days later that it was a false report. So, when Anuj spoke to the Ken's Shivani Verma, he was fuming. He said they're treating home collection like food delivery. And that is not far from the truth, considering the number of similar cases that have come to light lately. What could be the reason for these inaccurate results? Here's a hint. In India, anybody with a license can operate a diagnostics lab. An accreditation from the National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration Laboratories, or NABL, is not mandatory. Welcome to Daybreak, a business podcast from the Ken. I'm your host Snigdha Sharma, and I don't chase the news cycle. Instead, every day of the week, my colleague Rahel Philippos and I will come to you with one business story that is worth understanding and worth your time. Today is Thursday, the 27th of June. It's come to a point where even doctors do not entirely trust reports from e-diagnostic platforms. To understand why, the Ken spoke to Vishu Bhasin, the director of Dr. P. Bhasin Path Labs, a Delhi-based diagnostics lab. And here's what he told us. Just as you'd think twice before ordering a paneer sizzler for home delivery due to quality concerns, but you might go for a pizza, certain lab tests fit the home collection bill while others do not. Since some samples can be collected at home without getting affected, they are widely accepted. But there are some that will get affected. The thing is, there are a whole bunch of conditions that need to come together for a home collected sample to work. At least 10 former and current executives, phlebotomists, lab technicians, and pathologists told the Ken that test results are only accurate if the sample is collected properly, transported under specific conditions, and deposited at the lab as soon as possible. But many of them also admitted that these ideal conditions are often not met. Bhasin, who has over a decade of experience in the diagnostics industry, noted that the travel time from sample collection to a testing lab for many companies, including startups like Healthians, can be up to 6 hours. So the Ken reviewed 17 reports from home collection service users. The time from sample collection to lab receipt changed from 3.5 hours to 9 hours. Only Orange Health Labs managed to receive a sample within 20 minutes. Max Labs and even listed companies like Dr. Lal Path Labs and Metropolis did not specify the time the samples reached their labs. So you see how the pandemic created the perfect pathway for the transformation of this unregulated and unorganized diagnostics industry. But in the race to offer convenience to customers, the business is becoming a victim of intermediation. And accuracy, which is of utmost importance in this case, has gone for a toss. Stay tuned to find out how exactly. Vineet Kaul, a New Delhi based fintech professional, usually books Max Labs services a few times a year for all kinds of tests, from complete health checkups to specific assessments like thyroid, CBC, and lipid profiles. Now, one fine day, Vineet noticed a concerning pattern. On three occasions, the potassium levels in his Max Lab report had spiked, indicating hyperkalemia, which essentially means a big risk of heart attack. He wasn't so sure of it, so he sought a repeat test for potassium alone from Dr. Lal Path Labs, and the results were normal. Cole shared these reports with an independent doctor to confirm. But until he was sure, him and his entire family went through hell. He talked about it with us. He said that everyone was worried that something was wrong with him. And you cannot put a cost to something like that, and you cannot let go of a wrong test. Now, let us try to understand what could have happened in this specific case. Bhasin explained it to us. He said that with general health checkups, potassium is the test that gets the most impacted due to transport conditions. Hemolysis, the destruction of red blood cells, can increase potassium levels. If the values are off the charts or missing from the report, it is a clear sign that the sample was compromised. Even Dr. Shantakumar Murada, who works with NABL, told us that potassium test is indeed time sensitive. The Ken found that Max Lab reports omitted crucial information about sample arrival times. It only gave details about when it was collected and when the report was released. Same with Dr. Lal Path Labs. Even with a comprehensive package like the WellWise Essential Body Checkup from Max Labs, reports only displayed collection dates and times. Now, here is what is the most concerning thing. Potassium is not just a footnote in blood work. Murada told us that it plays a super important role in kidney function tests. Even in diabetes, kidneys are often the first organs that get affected. So, checking potassium is standard in blood work for patients with the most common issues like kidney disease, hypertension, and heart issues. There are basically three variables that play a huge role in the accuracy of these tests. Number one is pre analytic or before the sample reaches the lab. Number two is analytic or during the lab processing. And number three is post analytic or after the test is conducted. With home collection, the spotlight is on the pre analytic stage. And that is where phlebotomists and runners play a crucial role. They are the ones who hold the keys to a sample's fate and accuracy. Stay tuned for more on this. Every day early in the morning, phlebotomists across India don their uniforms and masks and hit the ground with their square bags slung over their shoulders. Each one is given a specific area and they have to travel 15 kilometers or more to collect samples. Tata 1MG employs over 800 phlebotomists and Healthians has a fleet of around 1800. Deepak Sahni, the CEO and founder of Healthians, claimed that phlebotomists from his company collect 8 to 9 samples daily. The Ken has learned that the figure can go up to 22 for some of these platforms, which basically means around 15 minutes or less per patient. To go deeper into the process, we at the Ken booked serum electrolytes tests from 6 labs across 3 metro cities. We saw how some phlebotomists were ill prepared, they did not have enough ice packs, or were opting for ice boxes instead. But multiple lab technicians that we spoke to said that the samples should be nestled between many ice packs. We also learned how these labs transport the samples. Dr. Lal Path Labs and Metropolis phlebotomists take the sample to their nearest centers, which then send them to a regional or a central hub. Those who work for Tata 1MG, Healthians, PharmEasy, and Redcliffe meet the runners periodically in designated areas to hand over these samples. These runners then transport the samples in chiller boxes to labs which may be situated far away. Take Healthians for instance. Most of the tests collected in Delhi NCR are processed at its Gurgaon lab, and this is based on information that we received from 6 people, including 3 former phlebotomists and lab technicians at the company. The distance between New Delhi and the lab is around 33 kilometers, while places like Ghaziabad and Greater Noida are even further away. All are typically congested with traffic. So, what happens if blood samples do not survive the journey? Well, it is a nightmare situation for phlebotomists who have to bear the financial burden of that. A pharmacy phlebotomist who earns 160 rupees per collection receives no extra pay to collect samples for the second time. Some of the platforms also offer fixed salaries of 18 to 20,000 rupees per month. Some labs, like Dr. Lal Path Labs, give ice pack replacements to the phlebotomists, but others, like Redcliffe, 1mg, Pharmacy, and Healthians, do not provide such facilities. Here's what one phlebotomist told us, and I'm quoting: "Let us say I collected your sample at 6 a.m. I will keep collecting till 7:30 a.m. I'll meet the runner at around 8, who will spend another hour or so collecting the samples from other phlebotomists. Your sample will keep traveling for at least 3 hours." End quote. All the samples except one that the Ken gave for the serum electrolytes test took more than 3 hours to reach the labs. The tests were done from 1mg, Pharmacy, Orange Health, Lal Path Labs, and Metropolis. Only Orange Health's sample reached in 2 hours. So, all of this for the sake of convenience, right? Anuj, from earlier in the story, whose parents were given a false diabetes report, believes that discounts play a big role. Of course, people will feel great when they get a test that is worth 3,000 rupees for 1,500. And then comes the most important factor, which is how easy it is for someone to run a diagnostic lab in India. Anybody with a license can operate a diagnostics lab. NABL accreditation is not mandatory. And while both Tata 1mg and Healthians cited annual audits, doctors' authentication of reports, repeat collection of compromised samples, and the NABL accreditation, the truth is that the autonomous body, which is under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, is not a regulator. Like Dr. Murada said, and I'm quoting him, it, that is NABL, does not have the authority to penalize a lab or initiate any action. Unfortunately, it is also not mandatory for a lab to have qualified doctors such as a pathologist or a microbiologist. Anybody can run it. End quote. Isn't that absolutely insane?
Daybreak is produced from the newsroom of the Ken, India's first subscriber-focused business news platform. What you're listening to is just a small sample of our subscriber-only offerings. A full subscription unlocks daily long-form feature stories, newsletters, and podcast extras. To subscribe, head to theken.com and click on the red subscribe button on the top of the Ken website. Today's episode was hosted by Snigdha Sharma and edited by Rajiv CL.